I'm Roma Van der Walt, and this is Win the Day with James Whittaker.
You're listening to Win the Day with James Whittaker.
What we do in life echoes in eternity.
Broadcasting from Los Angeles, California. Here's your host, James Whittaker.
Let's go!
Hey winners, welcome back to Win the Day. The quote for this episode comes from Alice Walker and says, "The most common way people give up their power is by thinking they don't have any." Roma Van der Walt is a sports scientist, former pro athlete, and one of the leading voices in the future of female physiology. As a founder and CEO of Vitelle, Roma is building the first scalable health intelligence platform designed specifically for women. With a background that spans elite competition, including 7 years representing Germany in the modern pentathlon, humanitarian work at the UN, and digital product design, Roma's mission is to finally close the data gap in how female biology is understood and supported across every stage of life. In this episode, we're going to talk about the biggest myths about performance, recovery, and hormones, how to design your daily routine for strength, energy, and longevity, why female health data is shockingly underused, and why closing the data gap could change everything. Before we begin, the right bit of inspiration could completely change the trajectory of someone's life. So if there's a friend or loved one out there who needs to hear this episode or could use some help to win the day, share it with them right now. All right, let's win the day with Roma Van der Walt. Roma, great to see you. Thanks so much for coming on the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, well, you've had an incredible journey. To kick things off, is there a story of struggle or success from when you were younger that helped you on the path you ultimately went down?
Yeah. I feel like a lot of my upbringing was struggle, and sport was really the vehicle for me to get through that, both through, navigating being a third culture kid, so having parents from different countries, different languages, backgrounds, and then landing in a very homogenic society in Germany. And then, going through losing my father early, and then having to navigate my relationship with grief, with my body, with sport, with like every goal I had set for myself, and knowing that I was going to be doing that without one parent. And also, this without having a bigger community around me that you would traditionally have if you grow up in the place that you, like all of your ancestors lived, or at least a few generations before you.
Mm. That multicultural upbringing, how did it shape your view of the world and your role in it?
I think it's fun for the most part. And as you know, I'm married to an Australian. So we have 6 different countries to our name just between where we were born, our parents' origin, and then where we grew up. So between us, that is Scotland, South Africa, and Australia for him. And then it's Germany, Poland, and Kenya for me. So we say that our children will have a lot to navigate yet again, because we also chose to emigrate and then immigrate. So it's fun when you think about it from the incredible amount of input you can get culturally, historically. And then it's also really difficult to navigate in the day to day, because it's like, what do we celebrate? What do we not celebrate? How do we come together? How do we carry that on to our children? Where do we want to be settled for our children when they grow up? And how do we create an environment for them where they feel really at home?
I can imagine the dinner menu might be a bit interesting from time to time. Go from Vegemite to biltong to chicken schnitzel or whatever.
That's right.
Losing your father, you were 15 years old when that happened. How did that shape your approach to sports that you would later go in?
So I went into sports earlier than that. So at age 14, I was actually at an inflection point of potentially making the national team or not.
At 14?
At 14.
Wow.
So, and unaware that my father was going to pass, because he suffered from tuberculosis. And that is a disease that can be dormant, and the flare up a year later is what killed him. So I was very immersed in my sport, and I thought it was normal to train, 25 hours a week. I also really enjoyed it. And I think that intrinsic motivation is not something that you can teach a child, or you can force them to do. I think you can foster it if there's joy. But for me, that year from 14 to 15 was all about making up for that missed opportunity of making the team at 14. And then I actually made the team 3 months after he died.
Mm-hmm.
So he passed 9 months after my first attempt. And after that, there was just nothing else I could throw myself into the way I threw myself into sport.
And you've had an incredibly varied sporting background. When you mentioned 5 hours of training a day, like what were you training? Was it all in one discipline or a whole bunch of different things?
It's 5 disciplines. And so
This is the pentathlon?
This is the pentathlon.
Yeah. So you were interested in the pentathlon from a very early age as well.
I was.
Yeah.
I happened to, and it's similar to Australia, you do a lot of things that are either inspired by your community or the city. They're often subsidized by the community. So I was able to do everything from gymnastics, tumbling to, I think you call them little athletics. So we had the same. This is usually driven by volunteers and then subsidized by the city. So I did track and field. Swimming is compulsory. We did horseback riding because I come from a very small town. And then at age 9, I discovered fencing. And fencing was a summer camp. It was 6 weeks, very immersive, I think twice a week. And I absolutely fell in love with the sport. I mean, so by age 11, I was begging my parents to let me fence. And I thought that was going to be the one thing. And then I met my coach and he said, well, you have 4 of the 5. All we need to add is shooting. And then you're off to go.
So to summarize all that, what are the pentathlon? What are the 5 sports?
They are swimming, running, shooting, fencing, and it used to be show jumping a horse that you had never met. Until they realized that is quite a liability. And as of LA 2028, the horseback riding is officially replaced with obstacle course racing, which means that now the athletes jump and the horses don't.
Oh, I think that's good for animal welfare. Yeah.
Yeah. But look, equestrian is still in the Olympics. So I really believe that there was a bit of a scandal that involved the German team. I'll let people look that up for themselves.
You know what? I feel like fencing is the ultimate thing for kids to be able to learn. I want to get my son into fencing because, they want to pick things up and just, play around with it. What a great sport for kids.
It's a good sport. It's it teaches you discipline. It's very mathematical. I wish it was as well paid as tennis because there is a bit of that strategy of what is that person going to do based off what they think that I'm going to do. It's unfortunately very one-sided physically. And to this day, I'm dealing with some of the fallout from that, which was that at the time, my right quad was a size gene bigger. So I had to accommodate that. And then my left calf was a lot bigger than my right calf. And so as you can imagine, when that travels up in the body, there's a lot of imbalances from your hips to your back that you don't notice in your teens and your 20s. But then once you hit your 30s and above, then that really catches up with you.
You feel it?
Yeah.
So how big of a break is there between the events then? Like I can't imagine you go sprinting out of a pool at the Olympic Games to go and find.
They tried that.
Speaking of liability issues.
Yeah. There was a very short-lived format where they had it back to back, like in the triathlon, and you could imagine people coming. I think it was a very intense fencing bout, and you would go straight jump in the pool, and then from the pool you just change into your riding clothes and jump on top of the horse, and then into the running event, and that did not take. So right now, the way it's structured is you start with the fencing, which is the longest event because it's everyone against everyone in a field of 32. From there, you go swimming, then you had the riding, and then the shooting and the running is combined. So it's like the biathlon in winter where athletes do the cross-country skiing and then they have to lie down and shoot 5 targets. In the modern pentathlon, it's running and shooting. So it's upright. It's a pistol and not a rifle. And it's freestanding, so it's one-armed. So you really have to be able to bring your heart rate down. And then instead of shooting precision, which we did years ago, now they shoot targets. And you're only allowed to keep going once you've shot 5.
And are you able to bring your own gun for that, or do they just place them?
They're laser, so yes.
Oh, they're all laser? Yeah. This might be my new favorite sport.
I know,
This is
we
incredible.
used to travel with pellet guns. Yeah, well, again, bit of a liability.
This is really fun. I love that. You've also had exposure to a bunch of different health systems around the world. Is there a common issue that you see among all of these health systems that needs to be addressed? Or do you feel like some countries have really nailed it?
I would say between Australia and Germany, we got pretty close. There's the sort of combination of a more holistic care system. So you have practitioners and midwives that contribute to quote unquote traditional care and clinical care. Um, I wouldn't say everybody has gotten it right. And I do think that it's more and more driven by profit or it's just the chasm between the care that people get if they're relying on the public system and people who can pay out of pocket has gotten really wide. And it's changed in Germany, and it's an employee-based system now as well. And, whether that means you have to wait longer to see the doctor or you wait longer to see a specialist. In Australia, and no offense, it was also COVID. Um, I was in a setting with a midwife, and I would just say personality-wise, we weren't perfectly matched. And then that's the person you have to spend, 9 months with every 4 weeks, sometimes more frequently. In this case, I came in as an athlete into this second pregnancy. I knew what I was doing. I was running 3 to 4 times a week, and I don't necessarily think that she agreed with that.
Mm.
Yeah.
I have heard that when it comes to medical systems, you can only pick two of three things. It's affordability, quality of care, and the speed at which you can see someone. So I think in America you have quality of care and you can have speed, but it means that you've got a very high cost. And you see some of these other places where you go good doctors and low cost or free in many cases, but you then just have a long wait of being able to see someone. And things like health. My wife works in healthcare, managing hospital integrations, and I am so confused by the US healthcare market from the bottom right up to all of the things like insurance. It seems insanely expensive. I feel like the quality of care that I've seen over here seems to be very good for the most part, just in my experience. But I know there's a lot of people. I remember when I went to get eardrops one time when one of our kids had an ear infection. It was $200. I'm like, after health insurance, I'm like, how could a family have to decide between food on the table versus medical, medicine for their kid who's sick?
And it changes constantly too, right? So I have asthma, and my inhaler cost here, first of all, it's a prescription, which it isn't in Australia. You can just get it from the chemist/pharmacist. So that's nice because you walk in and I think it's $15. Here, my cost would vary between 50 and 105. And then, you have to become creative. Then you can work with coupons, which is also not something I was accustomed to. But the actual pharmacist was the one who told me. She said, pull up your phone, there's a website, and look it up, and you could probably find it for 30% less or 50% less. So yeah, you're constantly navigating a system that wasn't necessarily set up for you. And for women, I think it's one step harder.
Mm. Do you want to tell us what you're doing? I feel like this would be good timing for you to mention the work that you're doing with your business today.
Yeah, we're building the first female health operating system. And I'm very happy we finally landed on this sort of very simple way of describing it, because I would come in with data and we're doing, we want to close the gaps, and we're looking to be very comprehensive. We want all the data included that women are currently have access to and are exposed to. And as we've seen more in the general health world and more male focused, that health OS is becoming the holy grail. It's really, how do we become the most multi-source data point, and how do we do that in a way that delights customers? And so far, a lot of companies are doing it for consumers, and our goal is to do it as the central infrastructure based on female biology and physiology that then powers all of those other systems.
So what data are you going to collect, and how are you is that through wearable tech or, what are you looking for?
It's a combination of clinical, biometric, and then performance data.
So you do like a quarterly blood draw or something like that?
So if the very famous companies right now out there who are offering you anywhere from 50 to 120, I think, biomarkers, their relationship with the customer is quite finite, because it is, even in a subscription model, there's test one, test two. And between test one, test two, it's all up to you, and that goes back to motivation. 6 months is a long time to keep looking back at that test and go, oh, I should really do something about my blood glucose. I should really do something about my cholesterol. And where do I even begin? If you take it back to your regular primary care physician, I've seen people walk away with printouts. They don't, they go straight in the recycling. And I think the main thing people remember is to maybe cut down on red meat. And for women, like I said, it's even more complicated. You take into account how our body recalibrates itself every month, so the menstrual phases, and then you look at how we respond to stimuli or things that are not going well. So sleep, for example, I do not understand why we have health scores that are generalist for both men and women. Whether that's your diagnostic score when you get it back, whether it's your biological aging, or if it's in your wearable that just says, yeah, your sleep score is 90. I would argue that women don't sleep for very different reasons than men don't sleep, let's say over the age of 35, where our bodies change yet again.
Who specifically do you work with? Like, who is your ideal person you work with?
Boutique physicians. So they are the ones who've already tapped into the cash pay model, and they now have almost a duty to provide that holistic care. And any appointment avoided because of good data means that they can increase their patient base, but also improve better outcomes for their patients. So that field is expected to double in the next 3 to 5 years, and it's already in the thousands. German me doesn't necessarily agree with that, that we're going to serve this clientele first, because those annual rates, they vary between 5,000 a year all the way up to 150,000 a year. So that you can buy a lot of concierge and white glove service through that. So that's one area. Diagnostic companies are huge because, again, that finite relationship with your customer. If you only sell them ad hoc direct-to-consumer diagnostic tests, it's even worse than when there is just a subscription. So how do you incentivize people to stay loyal to you? Every day, there's a new diagnostic company coming out. Oh, we're going to do the microbiome. We're going to do, 50 biomarkers. Oh, we're going to do epigenetic testing. But when you add context to that, then especially for women, I would say there's this feeling of being taken care of as a whole person.
Mm. So the women that you're working with, can you tell us more about, like, is there a specific age range that you like to work with? Is it mums or?
So we're B2B.
Yeah.
So we don't discriminate.
Yeah.
So the end user, I would say, is leaning more 35 plus, but there are a lot of women now who are younger who are already really invested in their longevity. So it's a woman who wants to understand and wants to feel empowered without entering into a sort of combative relationship with that provider, where she comes in and she says, well, I have the data. And then the provider goes, well, I don't have the data. And I also don't have the time to review your, 100 lines of wearable data you just brought in. So it's this symbiotic relationship where the provider already knows you're coming in, and now you can zero in on the specific thing that we have unearthed, or we have seen that if it was isolated, maybe caused you to go on a care path that there's a prescription that you're getting, and it's completely disconnected from the supplements you're on and your behaviors, and then some of the symptoms that may be emerging from these like isolated areas.
Mm. And you've done a lot of work in maternal health. You've got kids of your own too. What gaps did you see in maternal health?
Well, maternal health was a void, because again, if we connect my background as an athlete and my sports science background, we have, as when women get pregnant, and now with more reproductive support like IVF, there is a very structured way of seeing your provider. So every 4 weeks, sometimes when you're going through IVF, there's blood draws, there's other touch points, and then in between there's nothing. And you just expected to figure it out. So you go from being a fully formed human, especially with your first child, who has it all figured out. You're active. You are, you have all these different areas in your life that you're passionate about, your community, your work, your your exercise, and then you get dropped into this new experience. And after your first appointment where they confirm the pregnancy, they basically go, we'll see you in 4 weeks. What are you supposed to do in 4 weeks? And so I found that during those 4 weeks, providing women with the basics, so community, exercise, and then additional support through people like nutritionists, acupuncturists, any practitioners that could help them with their energy and their well-being, that felt like wraparound care. And exercise was at the core of it because the exercise programs that I offered were safe. They were fun. They were in groups, so women got to meet new moms where you're not pregnant while your girlfriends are pregnant. So you have to find new people. And because it was central to the neighborhood, it meant that as you were going along in your journey, you got grandfathered into the previous postpartum groups. So now there were women who were 1 year above you, and you were learning from that. So I absolutely love that area.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You mentioned two things there, which I think is really interesting. So experts, finding an expert, like I've mentioned on this show before, the very first time I was exposed to like a sports dietitian, I realized how little I knew about nutrition. I was like, oh my God, it absolutely changed my life. Just like seeing a financial advisor about your money. Like there's so many different experts that you can go and see to get out of your own head and find out what the truth is for your unique situation. And then movement is such a big one there for people, whether it's maybe you're feeling depressed, maybe you're feeling sluggish. For some reason, if you maybe had a couple of weeks where you feel like you got a bit of a brain fog, just getting up and just moving, doing something makes such a big difference, right? To your mood instantly.
Yeah. And during pregnancy, it's even more important because now it's for not just you. And coming back from it, as you know, and that's fairly so 3 health systems, 3 slightly different ways of coming back from pregnancy. In the US, nothing for 6 weeks, then 1 appointment, and then you get thrown back into work at 12 weeks. It's intense. In Germany and Australia, you can get midwifery visits at your home for at least the first 6 weeks. And in Germany for longer. And then, in both countries, you can take a longer period of time off before your maternity leave is done. Here, I mean, it gets very complicated because it's tied to other laws. And so if you change the maternity length of time, you would also change those other laws. And so if you think of a woman being thrown into a completely new situation after being physically and emotionally stripped of everything she knew. I mean, delivering a child is so inherently physical. And then for 6 weeks, nobody supports her because she's not supposed to do anything. And then she gets 1 checkup. And after that, her physician says, I'll see you back here when you're planning to have another child. I mean, I will say in Australia, my physician said, there is a code under which I could suggest physical therapy for you. And I'll do it because I think you need it and every woman needs it. And so that's how I got, insurance covered pelvic floor therapy in Australia after my second child, which is worth gold. That's going to keep me healthy and moving and happy for the next 50 years. Yeah.
So important.
Yeah.
For mums who are determined to get their health back on track, where should they start?
You mean post-delivery?
Yeah. Or even they reached, not even necessarily then, like maybe they reached a point where it was like, I'm a year or 2 after having kids, or just at any point where you just feel like, cool, now I feel like I'm ready to get into it. Where should they start?
So if there's a partner, I tell women to delegate as quickly as they can and prioritize sleep. It really was a game changer for me. And because I've always prioritized sleep, to try and start pumping. So there was 1 night feed that I didn't have to do. So there was 1 longer stretch per night that I could take advantage of. I'm sure there are women that don't feel comfortable with that because they feel that maybe they should do the nursing, the breastfeeding every time. But it is a game changer for your mental and emotional health, for your relationship with older children, if there are any, and then any motivation you could find for moving your body. So that's number 1. And then number 2 is really paying attention to both the subjective signals and the objective signals. So I'm not wearing any wearable today, which is really funny. But I have my Sunto watch and I have a ring. And so I think observing if there are trends that indicate that the body is under stress, and then really prioritizing hydration with salt and electrolytes, so that it's, we're firing on all cylinders. Literally, there's neuromuscular connection. And hydration is so important when you're nursing a child. Because with that then comes hopefully the less of a reliance on quick energy foods. It's so easy again, even a few years out, to just be, I'm stressed, I'm still not sleeping, I'm trying to quickly get my body to respond and give me energy, so I'm going to have something that is either processed or higher in like quickly available carbohydrates like sugar. So hydration and sleep. And then movement. I think fixing the basics, pelvic floor, transverse abdominis, which is the deep core, which is what separates when our belly grows, is, again, it contributes to better gait, posture, not leaking, going back to the things you love. I had a lot of conversations with women who were very slim, who said, well, I don't need to lose the weight because it came off pretty easily. But let's say their transverse abdominis, there was a separation of the abdominal wall. And I said, if you don't fix that, this is going to cause you problems down the road with just the sports that you love to do. So you won't run as well. You won't be able to do your stationary bike. And so it's tedious. It's really annoying. But if you put in a good 3 to 4 months, even I've seen women that 5 years later, they still had the separation. And I said, oh, it's just, it's my pooch. I said, that's not your pooch. That's your organs poking through. And, in about, give me 3 months, do these exercises regularly. And when that is back together, you feel stronger from the inside out.
What would you say to a mother who's hesitant to get back into exercise because she doesn't feel ready or strong enough physically or emotionally? Would it be any different to what you mentioned there?
Yeah, again, start with the basics. What I would say, I've covered the basics from a more functional strength perspective, and then you can always walk. You are already inherently getting stronger because you're moving a child around, so they get bigger, and we don't notice. Like we go from when they come out and they're 8 to 10 pounds, and then suddenly you're carrying a toddler on your shoulders, and you think that's normal. I lived in New York City for 15 years, and I would carry my stroller up and down the subway stairs. I mean, with a child in it. So we're talking 35, 40 pounds. So that's pretty impressive. So there is an element of strength already there. So just acknowledging that, and then not getting, hit over the head with the messaging. Like, it used to be, you have to do the high intensity interval training, or, people who were really into their endurance training. Right now, for women who are 40 plus, there's this push that they must do strength training and resistance training. Everybody needs 100 grams of protein. I think just being mindful and kind with oneself. I don't need 100 grams of protein. I'm fine, And there are days where I probably need more protein, and there are days where I don't get enough, or maybe I don't feel like it. But I think still making decisions for oneself, because I truly believe that one of the things we say is, the next health revolution is female, and it is where science will finally catch up with what women have already known intuitively. So it's this, that if your ring in the morning tells you that you've slept optimally, but you just don't feel it, if you don't just pay attention to the ring, you would probably just take it easier. Or think about the context. Maybe your child came into your bed twice last night, or maybe they stayed in your bed and they slept across your face. So listening to yourself, not getting sucked into any of the culture. There's no must. It literally is no must.
Yeah, you don't need any additional pressure at that point.
No.
Yeah. And leaning into your intuition, it's such a big one, isn't it? So we've had Dr. Michael Bruce, the sleep doctor. He's been on the show 3 times.
Yeah.
And he's a sleep doctor. He's even got wearable tech companies, but he says that you are your best doctor. Like, Yeah. Well, and you wake up in the morning.
I love data.
Yeah.
Love it. And there are time periods where I rely on it heavily. But I think our biggest flex is being able to cross-reference these things now. Yeah.
We'll be back with the show shortly. I've got a quick question for you. Are you living up to your potential? It's a question that shapes your family, your business, and your overall happiness every single day. That's why I'm excited to introduce the Win the Day quiz. Head over to winthedayquiz.com right now, answer a few thought-provoking questions, and you'll instantly discover how well you're performing relative to your true potential. And here's the exciting part for our Win the Day family. As a fan of the show, you'll receive a personalized and absolutely free action plan to help you win the day every day. Now, just imagine how transformational the results will be when you consistently show up as the best version of yourself in every aspect of your life. Don't miss out. Take the Win the Day quiz now by visiting winthedayquiz.com or click the link in the show notes. All right, let's get back to the show. You've done all sorts of fitness challenges, even ultra events. How can having a specific goal, like an event or a milestone, it's different for you. You're a former pro athlete, obviously you have a higher capacity than someone else might. So having some type of an event or milestone that's relevant for you, how does that help someone stay motivated with their health goals, or just focused on just, being able to start making progress?
Yeah, it goes back to the void that I explained between or after diagnostic testing, for example. I think it's, again, I don't want to generalize, but it's when female bodies start changing and we lose certain hormones and they start declining, estrogen and progesterone. One big thing we've observed, whether that's me speaking to my friends or it's objectively, is that the motivation to get out there and tap into the adrenaline and cortisol is really hard. It gets harder and harder. So doing that without a goal means every day you just have to wake up and figure out, or even the night before go, "Ugh, am I going to set my alarm clock to 5:30 to go to a class? Or can I just not do it? Is it my body? Is it my mind?" So having a goal and making it about discipline is really the only way for me. So, funny goal, because right now I'm not training for anything big. End of this week is the New York City Marathon. It is my favorite race, regardless of whether as a spectator or a runner in the world. There's no energy that matches that race. And I gave myself a goal for this week to run 26.2 miles throughout the week by myself. I've run 65 miles a week, 100 Ks. I've run ultra marathons that I built up to very quickly or very slowly. That for me for this week is a great goal, and it's healthy. It's attainable, but it also makes it non-negotiable. So now by Sunday, I will have run 26.2, whether that means cramming 8 miles on Saturday or means like really breaking it up, into bite-sized runs.
Yeah, you mentioned there's something really interesting. It's understanding, like learning to distinguish between, yes, I need some rest versus let's just go and push through. So the episode that we had that came out most recently was Joe DeSena, the founder of Spartan Race.
Yeah.
And he does a lot of ultra events. And his whole thing is, look, we're not in the Civil War. We're not in Vietnam. What do you really have to recover from? He's talking about people sort of broadly. So how do you distinguish between, yes, my body needs rest versus, hang on, I'm actually being a little bit soft and I need to prove that I can go a little bit harder here?
Yeah. There's a really cool concept out of sports science called supercompensation. And it is where you give the body just the right amount of stimulus through training, through something that feels more difficult. And then there's a period of recovery, but only in that recovery do you unlock the next level. And so it's a beautiful curve when you hit it right, where you go, you're going down and then it comes out and then it becomes this continuous curve. So it dips a little and then it comes up higher. When you hit it, the stimulus too low, you plateau. And if you hit it too high and then the recovery isn't adequate, then you end up just like either coming out at the same or below. And I think for women, there are a few factors to know when to push and when to hold back. And so one is our cycle. So phase-based training is what we all learned about. So it's you menstruate, there's a follicular phase, you ovulate, there's luteal phase, late luteal phase, and then you PMS and you menstruate again. There's actually been out of sports science more push now to really figure out whether women are low or high estrogen and progesterone, because these phases can vary again person by person. And if you just go, well, every woman ovulates on day 14, then a woman who ovulates on day 19 is going to assume that on that day she's either going to perform higher or lower. So knowing roughly, observing those trends, and also being able to corroborate that with wearable technology, which means you want to observe subjective symptoms and energy and the timing, but you also want to look at things like changes in resting heart rate and temperature. And then you start getting a feel for it. Because I have 2 children, I figured out that I ovulate very late. So for me, technically, phase-based training, the way it's set up in a regular menstrual tracker, would get me wrong, even though I have otherwise a perfect 28-day cycle that is, it's beautiful because it's literally week by week by week by week. So being able to say, okay, there's a phase that just off the bat is going to be more difficult. And it shows up in resting heart rate because it's elevated, which is a sign for stress. That's a day where you shouldn't push. And if your sleep score came back and it's optimal, but you also feel tired, that's where you back off.
Mm.
You could have a sleep score that isn't so great or a readiness score that isn't so great, and you had 2 glasses of wine the night before. But you know what? You wake up and you're just fine. And you're also in a phase that traditionally is all systems go. Push yourself and then connect it to the next day and see whether everything's you feeling more rested, readiness is still high. So yeah, for women, unfortunately, the snapshot of one day is rarely enough.
Mm. It's interesting, all the wearable tech coming in now that can start to make a difference, and all the work you're doing sounds very important. What are the biggest mistakes you feel like people make with their daily routine?
They don't go to bed early enough.
Mm. It's one of those things that even when we know the people out there that are trying, what's his name? Is it Brian Johnson? You know, the guy who talks about like don't die all the time, and he's like, look, put your phone away 3 hours before bed. No one's putting their phone away 3 hours. I mean, I'm adding devices because we've got monitors on each of our children. We've got one on the phone and then one that's a separate handheld monitor. So we're actually adding devices before we go to bed. It's totally unrealistic. So everyone knows they need to go to bed early, but yeah, you reach that point where, or put your devices away. But yeah, it's very hard in reality.
But those 2 things are not necessarily mutually exclusive, right? Like you can still go to bed a little earlier, even though we all know that many of us will be on the device until the last few minutes before we turn the lights off. But I think, I see a lot of people do that reverse bedtime procrastination, especially when children are involved, or people who just feel like, I think the world quiets down and that's when they spend more time on their phone. I try and be mindful of not, if it's something I have to do on a screen or even just stay up later. Unfortunately, sometimes it is work. And then when I'm done with the work, I do my bedtime routine and I go to bed. And I do try and be in bed by 10 p.m. I am an early riser, one, because I have to be, but also because I enjoy it. Like my ideal rhythm is 9:30 to 6. If I could, I would always get 8 hours of sleep. But
9:30 to 6 for the sleep window.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. But also, in the summer, I can wake up at 5:30 easily if I went to bed at 9:30. And if I travel and I have to be in bed by 8 p.m., I'll be in bed by 8 p.m., which a lot of people think is either not doable or crazy. But the thing is, it's trainable just like everything else. And that's the thing, my biggest pet peeve, I think, in being a founder, being in business, being around. I've coached, like physically coached, high-powered, high net worth individuals, both male and female. And on the male side, there's a badge of honor of doing it all, right? That you do the travel, you do the socializing, you work incredibly long days, and then you also train really hard because on the side you're dabbling in Ironman. And they call themselves athletes. That's not an athletic lifestyle. An athletic lifestyle is so monastic and so boring that if coach says you have to nap, you nap. And so you learn to nap. You learn to nap 20 minutes, which is like a good refresher, or you nap 90 minutes because it's been a really, really hard training day. And I think that's something that people in business now who are running big companies, CEOs, executives, that's the one thing that they're actually unwilling to adjust.
So interesting that I've never thought about athletes being expert nappers as well, expert sleep. Because I as a friend of mine, got 5 kids, and we were having some sleep issues, as everyone does with kids, with our second born. And he said, you know what the real secret to sleep with when you have kids is? He goes, you will never have an amazing sleep. Just lower your expectations. It's like, and my wife and I, it's so hard for us to wake up and feel fully refreshed because you have that alertness built in. Of, what could go wrong. You're responsible for other human beings, especially if you've got those monitors on. But if you've got a background and, you've been basically formally trained in being a great sleeper, that's an incredible. Yeah, I love it.
Yeah. There's also, this came up with women in perimenopause and postmenopause, where they said just logistically they couldn't go to sleep because they were either waiting for their teenagers to come home or they had to pick them up. And I think wherever you can, those situations have to be met as a team. So, 2 nights a week, one partner gets to go to bed at 10 and not wait up until the teenager comes home at 11 or has to be picked up at 10:30. But you also get to shut your brain off and go to sleep. And then other nights, it's the other person and you sort of take that on together. And with younger children, there's a time frame where it's very difficult. But again, I still nap every weekend.
Love it.
And it's, like I said, it could be 20 minutes. And it's just a game changer. And everybody in the family knows that I love it. We got our children, our older child, our son, he napped until he was almost 6 on the weekends. And then, he was like, this enough. And, as long as we can, we'll keep that up with the little one as well.
You and I met doing cold plunge and sauna. I want to give a shout out to Like Minded Studios in Venice. Great place. It's such a big mental battle in the cold plunge. What do you say to yourself when you're in there in the thick of it, of the cold plunge?
So I can do cold plunge after sauna is easier, right? You've lifted, you've raised your core temperature, and that is easier for me to do. Again, I think back of Australia, Bondi in the winter, and just going straight from your warm bed and just rolling down to the beach and then going in. That is much harder. So the community aspect is so big. And it was the same. So in Bondi, I had friends and we would meet at 6 a.m. and we wouldn't swim. Like we'd go in 10 minutes, 5 minutes, and then go for coffee. So there's the community, the reward, the fact that somebody's waiting for you, the sunrise, and then good coffee. So with cold plunge, it's one of the things I love. It like-minded is the community aspect. But then I won't lie. If you gave me the option to do dry cryo, any day of the week.
We've had even Navy SEALs on the show, and they talk about that even Navy SEALs, no one in the world gets used to the cold. It's a battle every single time hopping in that cold plunge.
Yeah.
I realized the other day how stressed I was. There was a correlation to how difficult it was.
Oh.
It's always difficult, but if I'm more stressed, I'm just more fragile and it's tough for me to do the breathing to get in the right headspace.
Yeah.
And I also noticed, I've tried this out recently, I've done probably 10 sessions there now, that having something in my stomach, just a little bit of food, actually gives me the energy that makes it probably 20% easier to get through the cold plunge.
Yeah.
Because for me, it's the fingertips. If I can take my fingers out, my hands out, I can do so much longer. The moment the hands are in, it's emergency.
Hands and feet.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's a great place. Just to go on the female topic, not too much, but I went last Friday and basically on the way there, my body said, you can't cold plunge today. And they were fantastic. They said, and this goes back to what a lot of sports scientists, exercise physiologists have also talked about. There are certain times of the month where it's easier for women to do it and probably more beneficial to their physiology, and other times not so much. In this case, they were the best. They gave me the pair of Normatec boots, made me a cacao, which is just stunning. And I sat on the rooftop in the sun. I got my, morning sun, did 30 minutes of lymphatic massage, had a really delicious, good for me drink, and they know that I'll be back the following week, and as long as they will have me, because that's how you build like community.
Perfect. That's like what Disney used to be really great at, of those moments to go above and beyond to create that magic experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
love that we're comparing cold plunging to Disney.
I would rather a day at the cold plunge than a day at Disney.
1,000%.
Yeah.
Yes.
I want to put that out there. For anyone who's been to Disneyland, would you rather go into a cold plunge and a sauna or take your kids to Disneyland? My vote is for the cold plunge. The last time I went to Disney, it was so expensive. The lines were so long. It is such a brutal day to drag young kids to that place.
I know. Yeah. And we live so close.
That's right.
Yeah.
Olympic Games coming to LA in 2028 and then Brisbane, my home city, in 2032. You've had a unique experience being in both of these countries.
Yeah.
What city do you feel like is going to put on the best show?
Between those two?
Yeah.
Brisbane.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Isn't that interesting? LA's got this amazing stadium. It's such an iconic city, but Brisbane, tell us why.
Well, one, the logistics of LA are so difficult. I have had little glimpses of teams coming to LA who are already scouting just for everything. They need to figure out where their emergency medical care is coming from, how far the Olympic Village is from their venue, and then how they're going to navigate that with, the team behind the team, but also the individual athletes and their schedules, both coming into the country and then also during the time. And just to give you an example, cycling is going to be south of the airport, so Carson, and then the Olympic Village is in Westwood. So for people who don't know LA, in optimal traffic, maybe at 2 a.m. in the morning, I think that would be about 25 minutes in the car. In peak traffic, you could sit in the car for 2 hours plus. And so to think that an athlete with 8% body fat who's about to race the biggest race of their life is supposed to sit on a bus to go from the Olympic Village all the way to the southern part of LA is unimaginable. And I think it's very shocking to teams coming in, even who sort of looked at it on the map. So I think it's really interesting that LA is looking to solve that in a few ways. One is flying taxis.
These realistic solutions.
They signed a contract.
Have they? Wow, cool. As someone who lives in LA, well, hopefully it doesn't land on the house, but we'll see what happens.
I wonder if they'll use the HOV lanes and just have them hovering like in the Jetsons.
Yeah, they'll need to do what they do for the president, where they just have like an Olympic athlete motorcade, where they just maybe they will.
They are going to start satellite villages on other campuses of universities that are closer to the individual venues. But that's really sad, because now you're taking away from the biggest excitement of an Olympic Games, which is to have everybody in one place and have them meet each other across sports, across countries, languages, cuisines. So I think that's going to be very, very difficult. I think we're less than 3 years out, and it doesn't really feel like an Olympic city yet. So, and I do wonder if it's going to be difficult for spectators to just commit to buying tickets for several things if they don't know how they're going to get from A to B. So Brisbane, on the other hand, is already investing in the preparations. And again, because of my Australia connection, they're investing in the people. They've brought some incredible people that I very much would have loved to have stay here over to live in Australia, and it's 7 years to go. Some Europeans with just pedigree through the roof. And another thing that makes me really happy is a big focus of their preparations is female health.
Brisbane for the win.
Brisbane for the win.
Yeah, for the gold medal. How do we raise strong and resilient children? Is there something you specifically focus on with your own kids to make sure that they can show up, knowing that life is a marathon, not a sprint?
Yeah. Whew. So, um, I heard recently a parent say, I practice parenting around the philosophy of, what was it? F around and find out. And I would say I can subscribe to that philosophy about 25% of the time.
Yeah,
And
I think
then,
my wife
yeah,
prescribes to that about 90% of the time.
yeah. And that's where having the two African backgrounds, I think sometimes is not a bad thing. We were both raised really strict. We had the, sort of post-war European parent and then the African parent of sub-Saharan Africa, who also both just had to make their way across the world to a completely different setting and lifestyle, and make do and make it work. My dad went from Kenya to Poland on a scholarship and then to Germany, didn't speak Polish, did a master's degree in Polish in 5 years, and then did his PhD in Germany, not speaking the language. My mother went from not speaking German to being in Germany with a child on the way. So, they made it work, and I guess that's what you model. My mother-in-law is Scottish and moved from the UK to Cape Town, where she didn't know anybody, and a completely different lifestyle, even though my father-in-law is a white South African. And then he decided to take them to Australia on a work assignment, and they landed in a mining town. So very, very obviously not from there. And again, just had to make it work. And I think our children have shown a lot of resilience in the past 5 years in particular, where we moved them from New York to Sydney, from Sydney to Adelaide, from Adelaide to LA, and then another move in LA. So altogether, we moved 7 times.
And how old are the
Um,
kids now?
8 and 4.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a lot to ask of them, and it's made them that's already made them resilient. Um, and then we talk about certain things very honestly. So they know that my father passed away. So they know that there's no grandpa on that side. Our dog died last year. And rather than saying that she went to, I don't even know what people say. We said, well, she was very sick and she passed away. And so my children are very confronting with other people saying, she passed, she's dead. I'm like, yeah, I guess, I'm glad, we talk about it. But they are able to discuss that with us. They have a sibling, so they're constantly fighting. So I feel like that teaches you a thing or two about, how to resolve conflict and move around. And we do try to give them really strong boundaries around certain things, around screens, around bedtime. So again, we value our own sleep so much that bedtime is a non-negotiable, and it's very hard, as you know, to implement that with children because they will rebel and they start hearing that their friends go to bed later. But the payoff is huge when we know that they've gotten enough sleep. And then my husband comes in from the more meditation side. So he has been meditating nonstop for over 30 years. And for 15 years of that, he was in a community, in a meditation community. So he still meditates, I would say up to 90 minutes a day in chunks. And our children do not interrupt him. They interrupt everything else I do. Everything. Whether it's me being in the bathroom or me trying to sleep in, there is no filter under which, and somehow when Papa meditates, they know. So they'll just walk right past him. They'll walk past him, past, the room, the door's closed, they don't go in. And if I ask them, I'm like, where's Papa? Oh, he's meditating.
You walk past, give him the elbow.
Like, how'd you do that?
Oh, that's so
But
funny.
that's kind of cool. Like kids don't necessarily show respect for a lot of things, but that's one thing. And so he's trying to teach them through some of the things he learned how children can be introduced to it. Like around fear, he recently told our daughter that she has an angel in her heart that protects her. And she talks about that angel. She named her. She has long blonde hair.
I love that. I love these little rituals
Yeah.
and yeah, that's really nice.
Yeah.
Do you go to sleep at the same time as your kids? Like, do you all go to sleep at the same time?
No, we're really tough. So they're in bed between 7:30 and 7:45.
Yeah.
So that gives me a solid 2 to 2.5 hours of just picking up everything that they've left for me to pick up, but then also having a semblance of like an adult life.
Oh, for sure.
And free up my brain.
We need that as well. We try to put the kids down around 7 o'clock. If our son who's 3, if he naps at preschool, he won't fall asleep for another hour and a half after that. So it means if I'm not making dinner for myself and it ruins my chance of going back to work, it can be 11 or 12 by the time I get to sleep after all that, then waking up at 6. It's very tough, isn't it, with kids managing all that?
It is.
2 questions before the rocket round. Who's a mentor that stands out and what lesson did they teach you?
My coach, who also passed away. He taught me the value of data around everything, and it was subjective and objective. And he also taught me the value of like just having those kinds of people in your life that will always show up for you. And, like being 15 is hard enough as it is. Being 15 and navigating a new world of travel and being a little weird from you, like different from your peers. I have really good friends now who said, "Oh God, in high school you were so weird." Like we would all go out and you'd be doing God knows what, training and traveling. So just I think losing a parent raised the question of having that faith that people show up for you and things are going to work out. And he gave that to me like just 1,000%. So in German, we call that word Urvertrauen, which Germans have nice words. It's like the opposite of Schadenfreude. It's when a child can just know that we will always catch them. And I feel like when you're sort of half orphaned at a young age, it's very hard to believe in that. So my coach replaced that.
Very powerful.
Yeah.
And last question before the rocket round. On your best day, what's an affirmation that you could write on a flashcard that you'd show yourself on your worst day?
Oh, I've actually done that before going out on stage and being really worried. Just, I love you. Like really, really believing that this is me saying that to myself, whether it's my present version or a younger version.
Well, let's now move into the Win the Day rocket round. 10 questions for some quick answers. You up for this one, Roma?
Yes.
All right. Number 1, what quote inspires you the most?
Oh, can I do that at the end?
Yeah, absolutely. We can come back to that one. Number 2, morning coffee or evening wine?
Morning tea.
What type of tea do you have?
Black.
Number 3, what's one bit of advice you would give your 18-year-old self?
Things will get better.
Number 4, what book do you gift the most or that contributed most to the mindset you have today?
Oh, The Obstacle is the Way.
Great book. Number 5, was there a vulnerability you once hid within that became your superpower?
Grief and that lack of belief in yourself that comes with it.
Number 6, what's one thing you've learned about failure?
You have to fail forward.
Number 7, if you could sit on a park bench and have a conversation with someone alive or dead, who would it be?
Michelle Obama.
Number 8, what tool or resource best helps you run your life or your business?
My physiology, like my energy. When my energy is high, I run well on all cylinders.
Number 9, share one thing on your bucket list.
To ring the bell at the New York Stock Exchange.
That'd be cool. And last question, number 10, what's one thing you do to win the day?
I sleep.
Very important, more and more. Last chance to come back for a quote. Is there one that comes to mind or a mantra that you've sort of lived by throughout your life?
I'll say this is just off the cuff, not anybody's affirmation, but that adaptation is a woman's superpower.
Love it. Perfect note to finish on.
Good.
Well, there are a bunch of ways to connect with Roma, and we'll link to all of these in the show notes. You can follow her on Instagram at Roma Van der Walt, LinkedIn at Roma Van der Walt, and visit her website, vitelle.co. Again, all that and more will be linked in the show notes. Roma, what a pleasure. Thanks so much for coming on the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for joining me on another episode of the Win the Day podcast. We want to hear your thoughts on what we covered today, so drop a comment on the YouTube version of this episode with your favorite takeaway, any questions you have, or what actions you'll be taking as a result of what was shared in this episode. And if you found value in the Win the Day podcast, leave a 5-star rating on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. You'll find a link to both of those in the show notes. It'll only take you a few seconds, and more ratings really helps other people discover the show so they can get the mindset upgrade they need, and we can bring more winners into the Win the Day movement. That's all for this episode. Get out there and win the day. Until next time, onwards and upwards, always.